Hey, my name is Ismahelps. I'm a tutor for COM 217, and ahead of your exam this winter 2020 on Sunday, March 1st, I really wanted to give you guys an opportunity to have a better understanding of Microsoft Excel and why it's an amazing tool to really do well in this online environment in which sometimes you may feel like things are not on your side. So what I want to do today is give you guys an in-depth view, I guess more so a surface view of how I used Excel back in my fall 2020 semester to do really well in this course, and how it gave me confidence and it gave me tools that were very, very useful in expediting my process and making sure that I answer things correctly and I just feel comfortable in my process. And it's really cool because, once again, this is an opportunity for you guys to learn how to use Excel to your advantage, and it's an amazing skill to have moving forward. Obviously, this is a quick and not very exhaustive video, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a bunch of different topics, and you're going to have access to this Excel file in the description below. Or if you don't have access to it, if there's a problem, don't hesitate to message me. I just want to be there to help you guys and to make sure you guys do as good as you possibly can. So yeah, let's go through it. So the first thing I do with Excel, and something that I feel a lot of people struggle with when it comes to Excel, is that it's a daunting and maybe intimidating software when you're not very used to it. So the first thing I do when I get into Excel, as you can see, is I've already managed to make my Excel look kind of better. And the way I do so is I'm going to show you how I do it right now. So you have the normal default view in which small cells, things are maybe not aligned, and so on and so forth. So what I decide to do when I hop on Excel, the first thing I do is I press Control A if you're on Windows, or Command A if you're on Mac. And the first thing I do is I align my my stuff in the middle, and I make sure that it's middle aligned and it's also center text. And by pressing these two buttons, it makes sure that your text will always look good and it's always going to be kind of appealing as you're going through problems. Another thing that I do is that I know on Excel it's not always automated such that they recognize the numbers that you input. So in order to do so, you only have to press this dollar value right here, which will allow you to put your Excel sheet into an accounting number format. So by pressing this button, the dollar sign, you'll be able to put your Excel sheet in an accounting number format, okay? So with that being said, another thing that I really like to do is I like to put in a font for myself, and my favorite font for Excel up to date would be Verdana. Verdana really allows you to have a nice clear font, makes it much more easier and much more appealing to your eye as you progress. And depending on what you feel, you could always put your font size bigger. In my case, I usually put it at 16, okay? Now the most crucial part is adjusting the size and the length of your cells, okay? And this is done in a very easy way, and I'm going to show you exactly how we do it. So all you have to do is select this option right here, and you're going to expand the width to something of your liking, of your choosing. Now, I really appreciate having about 180 to 250 width. You know, I just want stuff to be big and to look good, and like that I'm going to be able to progress through my questions, okay? And then you adjust the height, as you can see right now, and I usually adjust it to 60 pixels. So just like that, we have something that looks much better. We have something that's much more accessible. So for example, let's say I want to write my name. Well, hey, just like that. It's big, it's accessible, it's easy to see. If I want to write a number, just like that, we have $90,000, okay? So that's something that's super important, and it really allows you to kind of get into your Excel with confidence, okay? You're not gonna feel like it's a daunting, inaccessible, unreadable thing, okay? And before I progress, I really wanna show you guys some quick little tricks and tips, and it's gonna make the other tabs and the other things I cover in this quick video much more simpler for y'all. So the number one thing that you could do is, obviously, let's say you have a name, okay, you could always, bold it, font it, or even put a border underneath, okay? Those are all things that you could do. But there are other elements that you could add to this. For example, you could remove a border just by pressing this button and by going for no border, okay? And you could always go back by pressing bold and italic, such that you are covered. This is a very basic skill to have, but it's gonna allow us to kind of make our way through different processes, okay? So With that being said, I'm going to delete the cell, all right? I mean this tab, and we're going to go into the first tab, which covers the concept of journal entries in relation to a T account and the accounting equation. Now, I believe this is the foundation of COM 217, and if you understand this, you're going to do very well in the course, because COM 217 is really much a puzzle that you're trying to complete. It's about understanding, well, what's the effect of any account that we're discussing in that question or in that requirement, whatever you're prompted to answer. And usually there's always something that's very evident. And when you have an understanding of the accounting equation, it will allow you to kind of figure out what's the second piece to add. And that's how you get part marks, and that's how you increase your chances of doing really well on the exam. But with that being said, I just want to show you guys how I use Excel in order to really have a better understanding of my T account, of my journal entries, and of just the flow of equations, the flow of accounting, okay? So what we can see here right now is that we have a basic journal entry. This is how I decide to use it. And as I said previously, you will have access to this Excel file, so you could reverse engineer your own approach to Excel, and you could also use this as a template. Obviously, you're not allowed to have any things pre-formatted before you get into the exam, from my understanding, but this is a very good template to have as you're doing problems, because you'll have an accessible and easy way to kind of compare your process, okay? So with that being said, you have the journal entries right here. So you have, office supplies, which is obviously debited, and then you have cash that is credited, So for supplies, we outflowed cash, all right? But what I really want you guys to see is an example of a ledger account, of a T account. So as you can see, we have a office supplies account, and then I made it very clear that the T account really just displays, on one hand, debits, and on the other hand, credits, okay? And with that, you get to have a very good understanding and a very good template to follow as you go by doing your questions. But I don't want to go by the theory too much. Listen, this is not why we're here right now. We're just trying to show you how you could use Excel to make it easy for yourself. So here's how you could make a T account look like the one I have. So the first step to do is that there's an option called, okay, you could select 4 cells, then you could press merge and center. That's going to allow you to merge your cells together such that it's centered at the middle. So for example, I could write inventory, and then boom, it's merged and centered. Now, as you can see on the ledger account, you see that there's a debit side and there's a credit side. So if you really want to have that, you could select 2 cells now, press merge and center, and write debit, okay? Rinse and repeat for the other side. Rinse and repeat for the other side. So you have this for credit, and then you don't have to add title value, and that's kind of exhaustive. But as I said previously, you could add a border to make it look nicer. So you could add a bottom border, add another one, and then another one. And then it's all about kind of adding your stuff. So for example, you could have a beginning inventory of at the beginning of your accounting period, which could be $12,000, and then you could have used goods, used inventory throughout the process, cost of goods sold, or a lot of different things, right? And you progress to making your T account. And then another thing that I want to show you guys is adding the bottom border. Okay, so you could go here. This is a very important tool. The border section of your Excel is a very relevant tool because it allows you to add a bottom, a top, a left, and so on and so forth, a bunch of borders to make your progress much easier. And obviously this may seem daunting, but what's cool is that now you have this Excel file ready to use. Now you have this video. They can kind of rewind as you go through it and as I show you different things. So that's why this is very, very, very powerful. So as I said, you can now add a bottom border, and then you could write, for example, if you have a negative ending account, ending inventory, so you could add that and do your operations from there. So that's an example of how you could utilize this to your advantage. Now I'm going to delete this just because I want to give this back to students and I want it to be clean and easy to look. Now, what I took the initiative to do for you guys, I also displayed the flow of accounts when it comes to assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses. And I wanted to show to you guys how things change in relation to a transaction, for example. So when do you debit an asset? When do you credit an asset? What's really happening? And this is a very quick and easy way to have an understanding of, okay, well, listen, if there's an asset and we debit it, it means usually that we have a positive economic benefit. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with this again, but what's cool is that I do have my notes available, free, accessible on Casa JMSB on the forum. Go through it and you kind of get a better understanding of what I mean by having a positive economic benefit as well as a negative economic effect. And so that's the concept here. And then I did the same thing for the liability section. So with the accounting equation, what really happens when we debit a liability? Okay, what really happens when we credit a liability? So for example, if we credit a liability, this really just means that we have an increase in future obligations. So the reason why I took the time to show these different elements here is because, as I said, if you understand the flow of equation, if you understand the foundation of the accounting equation and how it relates to a T account and how then it relates to a statement of financial position and so forth, you really have a strong foundation to do much of your exam on Sunday, May 1st for the winter 2021 semester. Okay, so that's really the concept of T accounts and journal entries, okay? So now we're going to go to statements and to build a closing entry. So I'm going to take a macro view to all of this. So when you have access to my document, okay, on Excel, you're going to be able to see that there's a flow. There are arrows that are going from one element of the tab to another and so on and so forth. So that's just trying to guide you guys to really understand, well, how do I go through it? And how do maybe a student that did well in the course, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways of going about this, but maybe a student that did well in the course will, hey, how did I go about it? Maybe you guys could kind of bounce off that and kind of figure out your own way through this. And as I said, you have access to this. So it'll be a very good opportunity for you to kind of see, well, hey, based on this example, what has been done, okay? So obviously I didn't go on in depth with giving examples and so forth. I kind of just gave you guys a foundation. And as you can see here, we have a tab in which it says example on how to make statements, okay? And with that, I gave a lot of information from an example that I did from one of my crash courses. And you see that, there's cash, there's account receivables, there's other expenses, there's all this beautiful good stuff. And with that, there's also requirements in order to do an adjusting entry. So what I tried to do here, it was really show what an exhaustive question would look like, okay? And then how you could build adjusting entries, how could you make journal entries through Excel, and then how can you make powerful statements through Excel. Okay, it doesn't have to be exhaustive, it doesn't have to be on Word, and you could just do it through here very efficiently and very quickly. So for example, as you can see here, I do have my statement of earnings, okay? And you could use this as a template when you're doing Excel, because this is probably something that you're gonna have to cover on your exam. So as you can see, I did the same concept. So I merged and centered 3 cells, then I put the name of the company. Then I merged and centered another 3 cells and I put statement of earnings, so on and so forth. And what's cool once again with this is that you get to reverse engineer every step. You get to really have a very good feeling of how we build statement of earnings, statements of financial positions, and so on and so forth. So right here, based on all the entries that I've added and based on the requirements on the preparing adjusting entries if needed section, I get to build a statement of financial position and I get to build my statement of earnings. And listen, what I do want to stress while I'm here is that when we talk about statements of financial position, even before that, when we do adjusting entries, when we do entries within an accounting period, that's really what we're doing in accounting for COM 217. And I'm going to repeat that. In COM 217, the essence of it, it's really building journal entries. And from that, being able to put them and place them onto statements of financial positions, putting them into statements of earnings and statements of cash flows and so forth. But there's always a flow with everything we do. There's never lost energy in the sense that if, for example, you make an adjusting entry for a supplies expense, obviously something's happening there, okay? You're expensing supplies. And then you are crediting supplies inventory. So what does that mean at the end of it all? This means that at your statement of financial position, at the end of your accounting period, you're gonna have to take that into account. Your supplies inventory account will now be credited. And that's where it's really, really, really important to understand the value of the accounting equation. Because when you understand the value of the accounting equation, you see that if we're crediting supplies inventory through an adjusting entry at the end of our accounting period, this really does mean that our account of supplies inventory will have to be reduced. It will be decreased because there's a negative economic benefit in the long run for that account. Therefore, in our statement of financial position, it makes no sense to put the same number that we had at the beginning of the accounting period. Okay? Now, listen, I know this is a quick way of talking about it, but if you want help, I'm always happy to help. And this is just a way to really see the flow of how these equations work. And what I did take the time to do is I took the time to demonstrate, because a lot of students have maybe problems with retained earnings in a big exhaustive problem. So I demonstrated how the T account would look. What was the beginning balance in the credit section? And then what was the net earnings that we derived from our statements of financial position? And then I also demonstrated how we decide to close temporary accounts. In other words, how we close accounts at the end of an accounting period. And I took the time to include a little section at the bottom so you could really use that to have a better understanding of what's going on. And by using this tab, I really hope that it gives you a better view, maybe something that's cuter, that looks better, that gives you really a nice feel for what this type of question is all about. All right, and now we're going to go to another tab. It's pretty straightforward. I have a document on this, if you will. Let me know if you guys want to see this. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. It's 5 a.m. right now. So I wanted to cover AFDA questions, allowance for doubtful accounts. And essentially, this is a way, in an exam, this is how I would go about it. This is how I went about it when I took the course. And essentially, I really want to just spend some time on the cliff notes here, on the highlights, because I believe that if you kind of understand, accounting 217 to a certain degree, you'll be able to see what we have to do in a really rudimentary level. What you have to do here is very simple. It's a journal entry as well as a T account, and that's as far as it gets. But what I do want to stress is that when you have a schedule of accounts receivable by age, okay, you're going to be able to multiply that by a bad debt rate percentage. And then you could add them together to find your allowance for doubtful accounts for that period. Now, a mistake that's commonly done by students is that they believe that the allowance for doubtful accounts is the value that they have to associate to bad debt expense. And that can be farther from the truth, okay? The allowance for doubtful accounts, that number that you get by summing all the different allowance for doubtful accounts through your schedule of accounts receivable by age, is actually, it's the value that you're going to have in your statement of financial position under the account of allowance for doubtful accounts. So I'm going to say this one more time for you. Okay? So that number that you get right here, that 14,650, okay? That number will be the value associated to the account on your statement of financial position at the end of the accounting period. That's the value that you're going to have on your statement of financial position at the end of the accounting period. So what I decided to do is I decided to show you guys a partial statement of financial position in which you see that we have less allowance for doubtful accounts at the same value. It's 14,650, okay? So do not make the mistake to associate, okay, your AFDA number to your bad debt expense. What you have to do now is you have to use the additional information they give you throughout the question and put it into your T account in order to derive your bad debt expense. So that's what I took the time to do here. And I really do stress that you take the time to look at this and have a feeling for it. And by using Excel, once again, you get to have a very quick and efficient way to go through it, okay? So use this template to your advantage. Now, another thing that I want to go quickly through and how I really use Excel to my advantage in this case. And when I took this course, I didn't have a question on this, but in the case that you do, this is a very powerful kind of consideration to have. And this is essentially a bank reconciliation. And if I'm not mistaken, this is what you do in chapter 6. It was covered for exam 2 of COM 217 back in fall 2020. So what I did here is I provided to you a template on how to cover bank reconciliations, okay? And I also have important things to remember on the side, which kind of tell you, well, hey, how do you find your ending cash balance per book or per bank statements, okay? How do you find deposits and transits? And how do you find outstanding checks? and where do you put them within your bank reconciliation process, okay? Because sometimes they may provide to you a wordy question. Sometimes they may provide to you a lot of information. So how do you filter all of that through and actually be conductive and effective, okay? How do you be quick with it? So by using this template and by kind of looking through my important things to remember, maybe you'll have a better feel for this, and that's exactly what I'm going for. So what I want to show you here really quickly is that you have a template, and it's essentially exactly what you need to do. And I have every title covered. So for example, for your company's books, you have collections by bank for notes receivable and collections by bank for interest collected, okay? Then in terms of deductions, you also have your non-sufficient checks as well as your bank service charges. So the idea with this is that when you do these questions, you have it quickly and accessible to you. When you're practicing, you have this template accessible to you, and hopefully you use Excel as you go through it. Okay, and once again, as I always say, is by having this, you get to reverse engineer the process, you get to have a better feel for it, and hopefully you get to use Excel in a more powerful way for yourself. And I'd be more than happy to give you guys a tutorial on every single step if that's something that's relevant to some. This is something I do offer in my crash courses. I kind of show everybody my process as I go through it, but I just don't know how easily and how accessible it is to kind of teach that through a video like this, so listen, we learn as we go. Now, something that I know that is very coveted, something that I know a lot of people want to have a better feeling for, and that you guys really want to understand, is how to use perpetual systems, how to use inventory systems, and how to get a better understanding of cost of sales. Okay, so that in a sentence, people want to have a better feeling for inventory systems. And I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's FIFO as well as the weighted average cost method. And right now what I did is I gave you guys a very exhaustive example of every single step and how I used it, how I positioned myself for the exam, okay? Now I'm not gonna go through every single step. However, with this, you have every single function already calculated for you. Okay, so if you go through this tab, you're going to be able to see every single step that I took in relation to the example I have, and I think that's extremely powerful. So by using this tab, you're going to get a very good understanding of how to position yourself when you use FIFO under the perpetual system, or how you use the weighted average cost method under the perpetual system. I also included a periodic system for you guys to go through, but that's not likely to be covered, not for a big question, but who am I? I don't know. It always changes from day to day, from semesters to semesters. So by using this, you get to have a better understanding of how do you find your cost of goods available for sale? How do you find your cost of remaining inventory? How do you find your cost of sales? Okay, these are things that are extremely important, and that's what's going to make a difference if you have a question on this. Okay, so this is extremely important. Not going to go in detail about this because it's a very long concept, but that's why I took the time to build this template for you to follow, such that it's easy and accessible for you. As I said, everything that's laid out here is checked. Everything that's laid out here has functions already written down for you. So you just have to take a look, take maybe 10 minutes to go through it, and you're gonna have a very good understanding of what inventory systems are, okay? And then, as I said, there's an inventory under perpetual FIFO T account for you, so you get to really have an understanding of what we're doing. And I'm gonna say to you right now, when we're looking for cost of sales, it's essentially beginning inventory, okay, plus purchase goods throughout the accounting period minus ending inventory. That's how you find cost of sales. And this is going to be something extremely important for you to remember and kind of have a feel for, because when you do Comp 305 managerial accounting, this is something that you're going to cover in detail, okay? You're going to cover the idea of cost of goods sold as well as cost of goods manufactured. So it's a really good idea to have a feel for it now. FIFO is going to be something that you see again and again and again, so I hope this could help you, all right? And the last thing that I want to cover, and that I really think you could use Excel to place yourself in a very good position in order to optimize your chances and your odds of doing well on this exam, is by understanding how you could use Excel to do bond questions, okay? Now, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different, chapters or a lot of different questions that you could have on Comp 17. Not all of them are optimized for Excel, honestly. Like, some of them can be done quickly by hand, but what I did here is I really wanted to cover every single problem that I believe you could really have an advantage if you master Excel, or if you just have a better feeling for it. And then I'm also going to show you guys how to take this and export it towards your Word document in a quick and effective manner, okay? So with this being said, when I have a bonds question, I really value the idea of having all my information laid out for me, okay? That's something that's extremely relevant, all right? I feel like if I have that ready for me from the very beginning, I have an advantage for every single step that I have to do afterwards. Because when you do bond questions, you're gonna have to deal with your coupon rate a lot, you're gonna have to deal with the yield to market rate a lot, you're gonna have to do a lot of things that relate to the base information you've had. So my camera closed. I'm gonna restart from where we left off. So as I said, with bond questions, it's extremely relevant for you to be able to have all your information with you from the very beginning, because you're gonna be recycling them and using them as you progress, okay? So as you see at the top left corner, I have my how to master bonds with Excel, and I have underneath that relevant information. So what I took the time to really focus on was the par value. You have to define that. It's given to you from the very beginning. It's the value of the bond, okay? It's the face value of the bond. This is something that's extremely important for you to remember, because this is something that you're gonna cover in COM 220, it's something that you're gonna cover in COM 308, okay? And then with that, I cover my coupon rate, my market rate, the years that I have to cover, as well as the payment frequency. It's extremely important to know your payment frequency, because then you could have your periods, okay? So then, in that case, I put 20. Everything is laid out, everything is defined, all right? And then I have my annuity payment, which they tell you within the question, all right? And with that, you get to have your present value calculations, okay? And obviously, you have an annuity table that's provided to you within the exam, or they may give you the annuity numbers in themselves to find the present value of those values. So don't worry about that too much. But as you know, you want to be able to multiply that by the value of the principal as well as the value of the annuity, okay? So I'm going to repeat that one more time. In the exam, they're going to give you a annuity calculator, annuity table, or just they'll give you straight up number for annuities that you're going to have to multiply your principal as well as your annuity, okay? Because you want to find the present value of those two funds, of the annuity as well as the principal. And then with that, you get a value. With that, you get a value that's extremely relevant. That value is going to allow you to know whether you have a premium on the issuance of your bonds or a discount, on the issuance of your bonds, okay? And that's typically just in relation to the coupon rate to the market rate, okay, and vice versa. So the idea here is that you want to have all your information available to you at all times, okay? And in this example, you get to see that we received cash of about $917,000. And then we know that our bonds payable, which is a liability, is of $800,000. Therefore, the difference will be the premium, okay, on the issuance of bonds. And now I want to take the time to really understand a concept with you guys. Remember the accounting equation. If you don't know what to do here, think about the accounting equation. It's a puzzle, okay? It's a puzzle. Obviously, if you have cash that's above bonds payable, there's a difference, and that difference has to be credited, okay? So remember that. Now, the last thing that I want to cover for bonds is something that's extremely powerful. Now, there's not really a question or an example here, but I wanted to show you guys how I decide to place myself, how I decide to position myself when I have questions on bonds, okay? Because you want to find your interest payable, you want to find your interest expense, and you want to know the carrying amount as you progress through different periods, okay? And by using this table, you do just that. And in this scenario, we have a scenario in which we have to do an adjusting entry at the end of 2017. So we only have to cover 5 months of our interest payable, okay? And that interest payable would be $64,000. Now, I'm not going too much in detail. There's a lot to cover for this. But what I want to stress to you guys is by using a bond schedule like this, in which you have your date, okay, you have your date defined, you have your interest payable section defined, you have your interest expense defined, as well as your amortization and your carrying amount. While you have those 5 things defined, it makes it very much easier for you to go through this, okay? And this is where I really stress to you guys to use the functions that I place into my tab for Excel, because it'll give you a very good feel of what to do here. So what I want to do right now is kind of redefine what I just said, okay? So when I have bond questions, and when I know that they have a question in which they say, hey, prepare the journal entries for December 31st, prepare the journal entry for July 31st, so the date of issuance of payments of the annuity, stuff of that sort. Well, I'd much rather have a table there for me, because I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what my interest payable is. I know exactly what my interest expense is, and then I know what my carrying amount will get decreased by period, okay? So these are things that obviously you kind of want to cover not in 5 minutes, but I kind of just want to give you a feel for what this is. And with that being said, I do have questions available through my Comp 17 notes when I took the course. I hope they help. Listen, the online environment is tough. You know, we're all going through it. We're all kind of we're stressed. We're trying to figure stuff out. And hopefully this is going to be a vector to you guys. Hopefully this is going to be an opportunity for you guys to kind of get a better feeling of how to make Comp 17 more interactive, more fun, more appealing. Maybe get one thing out of it, you know? So that's what I hope for you guys. And I hope that this could at least help a little bit, you know, make it slightly easier. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to give you an example of how to use this, you know, use this good stuff and place it into your Word document, okay? So what I would do in an exam, okay, I would open my Word document, as I'm doing right now, open a blank document, all right? And then, for example, I want to put my statement of earnings into my Word document. What you could do is this, all right? So you're going to select your statement of earnings, ready? You're going to select your statement of earnings, you're going to right click, all right? You're going to do copy. That's all you got to do when you're Excel. You're going to select that, you're going to press copy. All right, I'm going to say that one more time. You're going to select your statement of earnings or whatever that has to be selected. You're going to right click copy. Alrighty? And then you're going to go onto your Word document. You're going to do paste. Alright? But you're not just going to press paste. You're going to press paste as special. Alright? Or paste special. The thing that's underneath paste, you're going to trust that. You're going to press paste special. As you can see on my screen, it's paste special. It may be different on your computer, but the idea is that you don't want to do a normal paste because that's not going to give you what you need. You're going to get a bad result like this. Okay? It's not even printing. It's going to give you something ugly like what's on my screen right now. So you're not going to do that. And what you're going to do is you're going to do paste special, and then you're going to do PDF or picture PNG. There are other things that may work. Me, I always go to PDF. Never did me no wrong. We're always moving when I do that, okay? So like that, now you have your PDF file and it looks amazing on your screen, okay? So with this, you could just have a bunch of different pages and you could just put your work as you progress. And it looks good, it looks nice, and you feel amazing. That's how I go through Comp 17 in a proctored environment, in an online environment amidst COVID-19. That's really how you want to go about it. And with that being said, listen, as I said, I really do hope that this is an opportunity for you guys to maybe do slightly better on the exam, to maybe get a better feel for Comp 17, and to see how Excel can be something very powerful. And hopefully this makes a difference between a 54 or like a 44 and a 50, so you can pass the course, or a 74 and an 81. You know, using this will allow you to get a better grading. You know, teachers, from my experience, teachers want to see you work hard. They want to see that you understand the material. They want to see that you know how to present your work accordingly. You want to make this an easy grading process for your TA or for your teacher, whoever the case may be. All right. And by doing this, I really do believe that you give yourself that opportunity. So, as I said, you're going to have access to this document in the description below, wherever this may be. If this is dated, listen, at least it helped. So you're gonna have access to this document underneath in the description below. I hope this helps. Good luck on your exam. Good luck in learning, and it's a pleasure to help.